school recruiting. This is the purpose of this segment. I will tell you, you need to be thick-skinned. You're going to be ignored over and over and over again when you communicate with schools. You just have to be incredibly persistent. And more importantly, you need a way to track what you're doing. I'm managing probably 100 schools right now that I'm reaching out to. And I use a database that allows me to record conversation, not record, but log conversation details, set tasks so that I get a reminder to call these people back. It's very difficult if you're going wide scale to do this without having access to something like that. I used a spreadsheet for the first year, and it worked, but it wasn't the best way to do it. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. So what I'm going to tell you is how I do it. It doesn't mean it's the right way for you to do it. The way that schools are structured in Michigan may be different from in other states, but you're gonna figure this out. So let me talk about what I've done. So I go in when I'm going to go after a city or a county or whatever. I will go online and I will Google for schools in Wayne County, and there's a website out there that you can go into, put in Wayne County. It shows you all the schools. You can click and go onto their website. The goal is to get the address of the school, the principal's name, and principal's email. It is a challenge because I'd say only about 70% of the school websites actually give the email address for the principal. Sometimes it's an internal messaging. So I have to call the school and say, give me the principal's email address. So you can use this tool. You can Google from where you are, your county, your city, whatever you want to go after, and then you can get the information you need there. So in Michigan, we have, I'm going to go from the bottom up, even though this goes from the bottom down, or from the top down. We have local schools, and then those schools are managed by a local school district. So in the city of Birmingham, I'm in Oakland County, and then in the city of Birmingham, they have a school district, an ISD, and that is the district that manages the 3 high schools in Birmingham. But in Michigan, we have county ISDs, intermediate school districts. So the county ISD has a superintendent. The county ISD manages all of the intermediate school districts. And then the school districts, and then the school districts will handle the schools within their district. So I will start at the county level. I'll record the name of the superintendent, and then I'll go in and record the intermediate school districts and schools and record their principals and superintendents. Next slide. Okay, Michigan, county ISDs. Okay, so once again, if you choose to go after the county ISD, if you choose to go after the district ISD, you want to focus on potentially 2 people, the superintendent, assistant superintendent. It says health curriculum coordinators, they're a valid option, but social workers, remember this, social workers will advocate for you at all levels. So if you decide to go after the county ISD, this is who you're looking for. The goal within contacting the county ISD is to get them to accept the program, get them to endorse you, which they most often they won't. But they have meetings with their district superintendents probably every month. So what I ask them is, let me zoom into that meeting. Let me talk about our program. Again, neither the county or the district ISDs are going to formally endorse you, but if they're called by a school, they'll say, yes, we know who these guys are, and yes, we support them. Or yes, you should look at bringing them in. All right, next slide. So local school districts, these you can get a little bit more traction. So again, Birmingham has a school district that supports all the schools in Birmingham, which I think they have 2 or 3 high schools. So again, district superintendent, support services director, social worker, absolutely social worker. You contact them, you sell them on what we do, and then you ask them to support you within their school district. That will come in whatever shape or form they want. They may just say, you know, if a high school calls about you, we'll say you're good and they should move forward. So it isn't necessary to attach or to go after the county district. It's not necessary to go after the district superintendent. What you're ultimately going to have to do is talk to every principal at every high school. They think that we're going to find out within a couple of contacts if there's any value at those ISD levels. But again, in the end, it's the principals that you have to talk to. Okay? East schools, okay, so in the end, it is the high school principal who is going to make this decision. And what you're going to do is you're going to do your email, you're going to communicate to them, they're going to ignore you, you're going to leave a voicemail, they're going to ignore you, you're going to leave another email, they're going to ignore you. So the way I always start is I will start by calling the school, get the receptionist on the phone, tell the receptionist who we are and what we do. I lost my son to fentanyl poisoning. We're trying to bring awareness to your students. Use them as an influencer. And then you ask for the principal's email, and then I immediately ask to be transferred to the principal. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to pick up, but you leave a voicemail. Who I am, what I'm doing, look for my email. So I will start with that call every time. I never send an email, the initial email to a principal without leaving them a voicemail. Sometimes they'll answer, then you can sell them, and the email is just a formality. The other thing I'll do is I'll ask for the social worker. Who is your social worker? And I will include that person on every email communication. And if I can't get a hold of anybody, I'll call the school and I'll ask for the social worker. Principals are very difficult to get a hold of during the day. You're going to have to learn when is lunch at the school, because during lunch hours, principal is walking the halls. So if you can't get to the principal, social worker 75% of the time will answer the phone. So I use these influencers. I use the secretary. You know, hi, it's Michael Gillette again. The principal's not getting back to me. This is really important. Can you give him or her a nudge and have them call me? So I use them, and I use the social workers. This really is a very effective way to try and get communication. But understand, you're going to reach out to them half a dozen times, and they're going to continue to ignore you. Okay, next slide. Coalitions. In Michigan, we have coalitions at the county level. So Oakland County has a coalition that handles all of the other coalition. So in Oakland County, we have one main coalition, and then we have smaller coalitions that may handle a school district or multiple school districts. And what these coalitions do is they have a relationship with the high schools. They are active in going in and having programs to educate the kids on whatever the coalition is focusing on. In this case, it's going to be drugs. So these people are, this is a group that I identify, like I'll go in and say Birmingham Drug Coalition, boom, it'll pop up. I will reach out to them. Here's who I am. Here's what I do. I want to work in your schools. 9 times out of 10, they're going to embrace you. If you're having difficulty getting into a school, they can use their influence and their contact to get you in. These resources can be very important to you. So if you're focusing on a city, put in that city's name, Drug Coalition, and you'll find out who that is. I said 9 times out of 10, they're very cooperative. The other 10% of the time, they may see you as a competitor. They may have funding that they use to do programs in school, and they're concerned that if you get into the school, you would compete with what they're doing, and that could impact their funding. None of that is true, but we have run into coalitions at different levels, at district level and counties levels, that have boxed us out. So coalitions, you want to reach out to them initially. If they're receptive, you want to use them. Hey, I'm having a hard time getting into XYZ high school. I'm talking to the principal. He's not getting back to me. And they can go in and pave the way for you. Next slide. Find your potential customer, okay? Okay, so there we go. There's the website, www.greatschools.org. I believe this is the one that I use. But again, by going there, I can put in a city, I can put it in a county, I can put in high schools, and it'll list all of it. And with potential, in most cases, with links to the high school. Then you have to log who you want to talk to. If it's an ISD, it's the superintendent. If it's the school, it's the principal. And then you get their contact information so you can start that dialogue. Then we have communication templates. I have emails that I send out. Depending on where I am, I have an introductory email. I have what I call a full information email, and we'll talk about all those. I have a WTF email, which is, I've reached out to you 12 times, you've not gotten back to me, and that changes based upon the school, but we'll talk about that. And then what you want to ultimately do is schedule a date. So you talk to the principal, you tell them what we do, you send them a link to our landing page. The link to the landing page will give them access to the slide deck, to the movie, an entire presentation. I give them this because I want them to vet the program. And then once they've seen that, the next thing is to schedule dates. And that's just working with them in the calendar to get dates and times to present. Okay. This is an example of a spreadsheet that you may use. So I would start on the left. Left of contact, I would have school. So here's the school, here's the contact. I see you've got it in the group, I'm sorry. Address, email, so on and so forth. And then what Jack has done is he's put a follow-up date in there. And you can, if you're good at email, I'm sure you can sort that follow-up column by most recent date, and you can view that every day as a way to show you what you have to call, who you have to call that day. Process is important. You need to stick to the process. If you call or email a principal and you don't log it, you don't make reference to it. I emailed, if you look at the email column, emailed at 2:24. If you don't log those, then you're not going to have access to when was the last time I talked to them. So very often I'll look at, okay, this is when I emailed them. I'll go into my email, I'll key in their email address. It will pop up all the emails I sent to them so I can see what our communications have been. I can see their emails to me. I can see my emails to them. So you have to stay with the process by recording this information. So you're not flailing out there. Okay, next. All right. Okay, so I use Bloomerang. I use a CRM. If you look at it on the left side, it shows Novi High School, and I can look at things like right underneath the high school in the upper left-hand corner. I can click on profile. That gives me the address, all the telephone number, timeline. That would show, if you look on the right-hand lower section, that's a timeline. So there's every time I've either left them a voicemail or or sent them an email or had a discussion with them. So you look at it, I'm calling this person on this date. I think the fourth one down is we booked the presentation. So this timeline is how I track what I'm doing. And then the one in the top, the green one with the square in the middle, that's actually a task. So if I needed to call that person next week, that task would show that date, and then I'd get an email on that date saying, Mike, call Novi High School. So this is how we use this. You'll also see in relationships in the right-hand upper section, looks like secretary, co-worker, and principal. Social worker would be in there at one point, but in this school, I don't think I was engaged with a social worker.
Counselor, you got a counselor.
Counselors, again, I always think of counselors as advisors for getting ready to go to college. We have many counselors that advocate for us. So that's another one, social workers and counselors and principals. So if you're using the CRM, that's the way I use Bloomerang. But there are some other CRMs. Streak Free is a free one. We're paying for Bloomerang. HubSpot, I don't know, HubSpot was free. But these are potential CRM
free version.
Use.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Okay, so when I'm talking with a principal about setting up a presentation, you have to be conscious of a couple things. You're going to get there 1 hour before the presentation to do setup. So you have to figure out how far away is this school, because I have to drive there and I don't want to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. So what I tell the schools is we would prefer not to do a presentation before 9 o'clock or 9:30, because that means I've got to be there at 8 o'clock. Which means I've got to get up at 7 and drive, and I don't like getting up early in the morning. So you just alter that to whatever works for you. They're going to try and, if you have multiple presentations, you may do 2 in the morning, you may do 1 in the morning and 1 after lunch. You just work with them to set it up. I always send a setup email, and the setup email is sent twice. Once they book it, I send the setup email. And then a week before the presentation, I send it again. And what the setup email says is, we're going to arrive 1 hour early. You're going to have to provide us with a laptop with PowerPoint on it. We're going to plug a thumb drive into it. We need a screen and projector for viewing. We need audio because we have a movie to show. Most schools have all of this available, especially if they have large auditoriums. If they don't, it's going to be difficult. You have to have a projector. If they don't have audio, we've used Bluetooth speakers, but you need to send this list to them early on so that they can come back if there's any issues. And then, like I said, I sent it a week before just to remind them. Then I'll do a follow-up email, typically either initially and when they book or sometime after, asking them to confirm the address and then where do we park and enter. It isn't always easy. Schools have multiple entrances. They have multiple parking lots. So you're going to want to iron those details out so that you have that information available. Okay, email asking, okay, email details. Okay, so we're good with that. Communications. Oh, yeah, so this is a one sheet. I never attached this, but this is a one sheet that highlights me as a presenter, as a recruiter. 35. Okay, I have not. This is a new slide for me. Capture their attention. Short bio. Okay, so this is just to give them a bio so they know who they're talking to. Next slide.
I can just.
Yeah.
So this is a slide that I recently added because I'm going through a program called Youth Speaker University, which is run by this guy named Josh Shipp, who does, for several years, did so many school presentations. So he just kind of outlines his approach. And what he always suggested is, and Mike's going to get into the length of the emails and communications that you do with the decision makers who are going to let you go and speak in front of kids. But you really want to keep those emails short and not get too into the weeds on content and everything, all at once jumbled into one email. So one way of really shortening your email and making it concise is by attaching a one sheet and creating a PDF version of your one sheet that will be hyperlinked in the email, that then the principal can go and see, oh, this is what Mike looks like. This is his background. This is an outline of their presentation, and then get a feel for if they're interested in booking. So it's something that we're going to be playing around with. and just, also learned that schools are much more prone to bring you in if they think that your teaching topic fits with the culture that they're trying to implement in the school. So if they really have a culture on, making it a drug-free or tobacco-free school, or lowering something that, like suicide risk among students or screen time, if they really have a high culture on that, then you want that topic of your speech, the title of your speech, to kind of match with their culture. Schools were about 37% more prone to book if your title on your one sheet, I guess, matched with the culture they were trying to implement as a school. And schools are more concerned about their reputation than anything else. So they just want to make sure that it's well vetted, it's well thought out, and we're not just going in there willy-nilly. So this just shows a level of professionalism as well. All right, I'll shut up now.
Thanks. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so here's where I struggle, and you're going to see it with the examples. I really have a difficult time making my emails short and sweet. It's important that initial email is short, but that it makes the point. So Jack's going to give you examples. I'm going to encourage you to use ChatGPT, to use your own experience, to try and condense it. Mine are still too long, and I just have not been able to deal with that. So we'll get into the emails. Oh, call to action. Go back. Call to action is very important. You're asking for something, and I will always put in bold print. I don't know if it's on this, but I am now, because this is an old email he's going to show you. I will always put in bold, I am not looking for a commitment. I am looking for a conversation. Because my initial email, all I'm asking for is to communicate with the principal. I want you to give me, and I'll say in bold print, can you give me 15 minutes of your time? And this could be a phone call, a Zoom call, it could be an in-person meeting, but in bold, I put, can you give me 15 minutes? And I don't want a commitment, I just want a conversation. Okay? So this is my introductory email. I don't even think I'm using this one because this continues to evolve. But, okay, so what I'm doing here is I always want to highlight that I lost my son to fentanyl. That kind of registers with people. It tells them who I am and why I do this. I highlight no charge if you're doing it at no charge. And Jack, that's a whole nother discussion. But the county I'm currently recruiting in doesn't have money, so we're doing this at no charge. I highlight that. I highlight it's a 45-minute presentation, so they know what they're dealing with. This article is meaningless for you. We were highlighted in the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals. They put an article out about us, so this wouldn't be applicable to you. But again, there we go. I'm not looking for a commitment. I'm looking for a discussion. I always attach recommendation letters, so you want to highlight that and then ask them to take my call. So this is introductory. Please skinny it down. Do what you can. Okay, so now I've made contact with a school, and I have got interest with the principal. We've talked about the program. They want to learn more. This is the link I send them to the presentation detail landing page. So they're going to click on presentation detail. It is going to bring them to a landing page. Here's a video of a presentation we did at a high school so they could see exactly what we're going to do for their students. Here's the slide deck if you want to review it. Here's the movie. And then I always focus on letters of reference. I want to talk about student surveys. We do what very few organizations like ours do. We measure the impact we're having on students. When we start a presentation, the first slide has a QR code on it. We ask the students to click on that. That will take them to a presentation survey. They fill that out. At the end of the presentation, we asked them to complete the survey, and then we collect this data. We mine the data on a quarterly basis, and then we produce a quarterly survey summary. So what I tell schools is we're collecting data. We are summarizing that on a quarterly basis. And that's way we see that we have a 32% increase in their understanding of how to spot an overdose and how to administer Narcan. You know, you can look at these, and I'll start quoting these percentages, and that tells the schools that we are serious about our messaging and measuring that. So the presentation detail, this email goes out once you've had a conversation, once they show interest. And I always say, I want you to go to this landing page because I don't want to step foot on stage until you've had a chance to see, you know, what we're going to do. That doesn't mean they're going to go there. That doesn't mean they're going to watch the video, but it just gives them the opportunity to do so. Next. So here's the landing page. So there's on the upper left-hand corner is the slide deck. They can download that as a PDF and go through it. There's a full-length live assembly that they can watch. There's one of the Dead on Arrival videos that we have. And then there are reference letters, and they can also, in the upper right-hand corner, they could click on the quarterly analysis from the last quarter, which is now the fall of 2020. Oh, that's an old one. Sorry, because this is, yeah. So this is a way that they could see everything. They can look at reference letters. They can watch the video. This is a crucial component, and this goes to them once they've shown interest. Okay? This is the setup email. So if I book a school, this goes out immediately. And then a week before the presentation, I will send it again. And these are the bullet points, but what I always do in the beginning is I say on, January 27th at 1 o'clock, we're going to be presenting at your school. So I'm verifying again the date, and then this tells them we're going to arrive an hour early. We're going to load these are all the bullet points I talked about. So this is important to send out. The one thing you don't want to have happen, you don't want to get to a school and have them not ready, because you've got an hour to try and pull things together before that auditorium fills up. So this is an important document to send to people. Okay? Next. Okay, this is a thank you letter. This one is thanking on account of Fentanyl Fathers and in Oakland County, the alliance that is participating with us. And I always tell the principal when the presentation is done, I'm going to send you an email today. And the one thing I want you to focus on is the letter of recommendation. We need that letter of recommendation. That letter of recommendation helps us get into other schools because schools want feedback. So I emphasize this heavily with the principal, and then I send this email that reminds them. It also asks for a donation. It also asks for them to spread the word within the education community so that we get more people coming in. I've gone to schools where I know they're going to give an outstanding letter of reference. If I don't see one in 2 weeks, I'll go back and ask them again. And you want to use these letters. They're critical. Okay, next. So we didn't talk about SROs, but that's another resource. In Michigan, we have police officers that are assigned to each school. They're typically roaming the halls. They have a presence. There are times that I will go after an SRO at a high school, or an SRO at a district level, or an SRO at the county level. And this is a county in Michigan that we worked on last year. I actually got a request from an SRO for information. I went to their high school. I met with all of the SROs for the entire county, or for the entire district, for all the high schools. I gave them an overview of our presentation. They were so impressed that we ended up booking 15 to 20 assemblies within that school district, both high school and middle school. And the SROs were very active in getting us in. So that's just another person you may want to reach out to. They could be called something different in each state, but in Michigan, they're called SROs. Next. Oh, an SRO is a student resource officer. Okay. Process and pitfalls. Persistence is number one. It is so easy to get discouraged. It is so easy to get pissed off because you're not getting replies or they turn you down for the reason that's ridiculous. So you have to be persistent. I'll send an email, and I used to wait 2 weeks before I would send another email. I've shortened that to a week or less. Then I'll reach out, leave a voicemail, send another email, and I'll wait another week, and I'll do it again and again and again. And eventually they're going to figure out I'm not going to go away. So they're going to have to eventually, reach back out to me. So we talked about SROs, email, and initial. So this are all things that we've talked about. You can find high school principal's name and email and the school website. I encourage you highly to do it via a phone call because that way they can transfer you and you can leave a voicemail. Board of Education in Michigan, they're worthless. They're not going to do anything. So I learned that very quickly. So I skipped them. As I mentioned, the county and district ISDs are a resource, but if you don't get traction immediately, move on. Be persistent, not obnoxious. I've broken this rule many times. When somebody turns me down, I don't take that well, and I have a variety of different emails that I send. A brand new one that I want to talk about before we leave here today. We asked the schools what the racial makeup is because the Dead on Arrival video, we have a diverse and a non-diverse version of that. So we want to show the version of that movie that is going to be reflective of the audience. We also want to record how many students because we have to track how many students that we're seeing over a period of time. So we do that as well. So another thing I do, and this is depending on what area you're going after, I reach out to the counties that I'm working in. I reach out to the county medical examiners February of every year, and I ask them for the annual report. So next month I'll call medical examiners. I say, I want you to give me your report on fentanyl deaths for 2025. And I ask them to give it to me in a spreadsheet form so that I can go into that and filter it. So I'll get a spreadsheet. It will have the date the person died, what their sex was, what their age was, all this other information, what city they were in, and then I'll sort that spreadsheet by city. So now when I'm talking to a school district, I'm saying, your school district, your city had 18 fentanyl deaths last year. So this is a number that is very large, and that shows that you have a problem in your community. So you want to reach out to medical examiners. You want to get they may just want to give you a number, but I appeal to them to give me a list with the date on it, so in a spreadsheet form so I can manipulate that. And I use that all the time. I was talking to a principal yesterday, and she had no idea that they had 6 deaths last year in their community, or 2 years ago. All right. Next slide. So before we have questions, I want to talk to you about a couple things. The value of reference letters, I can't say enough about that. And I've got, 20, 30 reference letters, and I have some that are extremely impactful. I have some that will bring tears to your eyes, where these people make a very strong point, how the students were fully engaged. Nobody was looking at their phones. Students were crying. I mean, it's amazing about some of these. So I will always send reference letters. You may not have any in your area, so, we can pick some to send to you as examples. But you want to build that library within your area as well. Why do schools say no? They say no for a variety of reasons. We don't have time this year. Principals, booking a 1-hour presentation is a task. Finding the time, making it happen. I always tell them, well, we're going to lose X number of people in the next semester in this country. you don't want one of them to be your students. Or they will tell you that they cover this in their health classes, or they cover this in their religion classes. And I will tell them immediately, I'll say this to them, and then I send them an email. I say, let me ask you a question. When your teacher in that health class is talking about fentanyl, talking about drugs, are students in the classroom crying? Are teachers in the classroom crying? At the end of your presentations, are kids lined up to thank you, to hug you, to share their own personal stories of loss? And they'll say no. And I say that happens at every single one of our presentations, without question. We did a presentation, I don't know, Gabriel, that was last week or the week before. We had students all in the auditorium crying. We had, at the end of it, the principal and the social worker came up to me crying. And I don't know who this was a teacher. This teacher came up, was a man, came up and gave me a bear hug as he's sobbing. Not because he lost somebody, but because he has kids. And this was a very alarming presentation for him. So those, you're going to hear reasons like that. You're going to hear, we cover this. No, you don't. You're going to hear, I have a couple of districts that don't want to bring us in because they don't think they have a problem. And I tell them, you don't have a problem until you have a dead student. And I will tell them, and that's in one of my letters, the age group 14 to 19, your students, is the fastest growing group to be impacted by fentanyl right now. So this is right in your kid's backyard. You cannot deny this. So you're going to hear excuses. You need to have counters for most of them. Sometimes that counter is verbal if you're talking with them, but very often the counter is an email. So I want to tell you what my most recent email is. We did a presentation in December at a high school, and literally 3 days after, a student wrote an article for the school newspaper. This was an amazing article where this student talked about how it impacted him personally, how it changed the way he viewed life. And it's an amazing article. If somebody says no to me, I send that article. We also received, just in the last week, a handwritten letter from a student at a high school we presented at in the fall, talking about how it impacted her and how and I remember this girl vividly, how she sat in the auditorium after the presentation sobbing. And eventually I went up and I said, you look like you need a hug. And I gave her a hug and we talked. She talks about how impactful our presentation was and how impactful that encounter was to her life. So when I get someone who says no, I've got an email that I'll send you, and it basically says, look, I've been pursuing you for 4 months. I'm done talking. I'm going to let the others talk for me. And I will give them the link to that article. I will attach that letter from that student, and I'll attach 2 other letters I got from principals, which, again, are very impactful. And I push those to them as a way to get their attention. I will also use that halfway through the conversation, when, we're thinking about this, but I don't know if it's really something we want to do. Boom, that email goes out. So that is a more recent thing I've started doing. I'll send that to Jack when we're done here, and he can forward it to you. You can use the link, you can use the letter, but you will accumulate these yourselves and use them to get people's attention. And that's it. Do you have any questions?
I think that so Mike's approach too, it's very systematic, it's very outreach oriented. We also have people who have even gone through the speaker program or who are interested in speaking on the topic or sharing their testimony, maybe in a different format, that we'd still like to, we have a front facing calendar. So every time Mike books a school, he always emails me the date, the time, the location, the school. And then I just have it on the calendar. And that week we're deciding, who's available to speak. And that's always front facing. So anybody from the community or anybody who's interested in speaking in their area that sees something up I encourage you to reach out to us and come speak at one of these events. Or like my grandma just wanted to speak at her church book club about my brother and share her story and her testimony, kind of. So I put it on the calendar as an event that people could go to. So if you do book something, and she didn't do a full presentation, but we'd like to hear about it. We'd like to promote it and be a resource to make that successful as well. And then Amber, I see your hand, and then Bob's hand too. Kinda. You're kind of, you got some fuzzy over your.
Have Robert go first, and I'll fix the speaker.
Okay.
The landing page that you spoke of, is that a community landing page that everybody has access to? Was that made by Mike? Do we have to make our own?
So I make the landing page. Every time that Mike gets a reference letter from a school, he'll send it on to me and ask me to add it to the web page. I update the web page, so it's a private page. It's not front facing. So we just send it out for Michigan, like it's fentanylfathers.org/MI. And I have it set up for different states and different areas because the presentation differs based on the area. We have to update Good Samaritan laws, local coalitions that are highlighted, things like that. And the reference letters that we include, I like to be area specific if we can. So that when you're doing outreach in an area, and also the state director or the person doing outreach in different areas kind of differs. So I also like to have a short bio at the top of the page of like whoever the outreach person is, just so, the people kind of know who's reaching out.
For our army of angels that we're creating here to go speak, how do they get the URL to the landing page? Just email you and you'll send back the URL, and then that can be used in emails?
Yeah, and after this training, I'm going to send out the PDF version of this presentation that Mike did, along with the templated communications. In one of those, it's like specifically the full info landing page. So you'll see the info landing page for Michigan, which is embedded in that email. But whatever your state is, if you just say, what's the landing page for, if you're in Pennsylvania, or Florida. Usually it's just / that state's 2-letter abbreviation. So if a landing page has been created already, it'll be fentanylfathers.org/PA or fentanylfathers.org/SC.
Yeah, would that also have, like, because Mike is the Michigan lead, right? He does all this work. He knows the school system, He's really the VP of sales of Fentanyl Fathers in Michigan, right? So I always would coordinate something with Mike if I saw a need or an opportunity. But what about another state? Do you do that likewise in other states, other leaders, captains, whatever?
Yep, we do.
Is Amber going to ask a question, or can I ask a question?
Amber's next.
Okay.
I do have a question, but you can go ahead, Greg.
Oh, thanks for recognizing my voice. That's pretty good. So, Mike, if you were to take 60 seconds or 120 seconds and summarize what you just shared, because I'm videotaping this for training purposes, the process, start to finish, in a real cliff note, what would you tell some guy? You're sitting on a bus. You're pulling over in 2 minutes.
About the recruiting process?
Yeah, with the recruiting, I call it booking schools, but yeah, the recruiting process.
Well, if I want to make it short and sweet, I explained to him that the principal of the school is the person who's going to ultimately make that decision. So if you're going to be reaching out to schools, your primary focus is going to be the principal, but you need to find secondary influencers such as social workers or counselors or student resource officers. And then you need to be incredibly persistent on your communication so that nothing gets away from you. You can never call them too much. You can always call them too little.
And we have
Thank
other
you.
forms of lead generation besides, school outreach, like table events or any speaking opportunity where you can speak about what you're trying to accomplish or speak in front of students. Those always generate leads. Now we've got a lot of word of mouth leads. Yesterday I booked 3 schools that just reached out to our organization in Florida. So that's 3 schools that I didn't have to do any of this process. I just gave them a calendar date, scheduled them, said this is what we need for the day of presentation, and off we go. So this is a very process oriented approach, and but any opportunity to speak where educators may be is great too for lead generation. Amber.
My question was leading back to the CRMs that Michael was presenting. It looks like they're free, but if I don't have one I'm using now, but if I use one of those, would you recommend a certain one, Mike, to use so that ours are linked, or are they automatically linked, or how does that work?
Yeah, we have, as an organization, we have access to Bloomerang, and I use it religiously, and I'd like to try it today before I leave on vacation, but I may not get it done. So either today or sometime in the next month when I get back, I will do a video showing you exactly how to navigate and use Bloomerang. Jack will have to talk to you about gaining access to it.
Okay, cool.
I would tell you that I like HubSpot, but we don't use HubSpot, and Bloomerang has been outstanding.
Okay. And then my second question was a little bit more towards the lead generation you were talking about and the footprints. Do we have one in Ohio? Just curious.
We just did a presentation in Ohio. I did 5 outreach emails for some Ohio schools, and we got 1 booked. I need to follow up with the other ones, kind of the way that Mike does, but I just wanted to try his approach too with school outreach. And we did that at the beginning of this year down in Cuyahoga County.
Okay.
Perkins High School.
Okay. I'll talk to you offline about that. I had some thoughts, so thank you.
Yeah.
Those are a few questions. Appreciate it.
Speaking of offline, if someone wants to call you, Mike, you're kind of a mentor on this subject or a pioneer. Is it okay if would you prefer them call you or email you?
No, well, you can call me or you can email me. I will tell you, starting on Monday, I'm going to be out of the country for a month. So you don't want to call me because you will incur international charges on your phones. So the best way is to email me. I check my fentanyl father's email probably 5-6 times a day. So you will not go ignored.
And your email is mike@fentanylfathers.org, right?
Yes.
Can we announce your phone number as a backup for a month from now?
Care. Yeah, it's 248-765-8371. But like I said, don't call me in the next month because they'll hit you with charges. But email is perfect. I'm on email, like I said, multiple times a day.
I think Jackie had a question too. Jackie?
Yeah, hi. Didn't have my speaker on, but a lot of the questions, or some of the questions I had, are already answered. So one of the things that I started out on my own when I was talking to the schools is not having a script for myself. So I don't know if I missed it, but I kind of developed one for myself with words to use, words not to use. You have a problem in your area. I took out problem and just insert it. We noticed the area. I can't remember. I'd have to read my script. So sorry for that. But just to get organized in that way, because certain words trigger them to just turn away from you. When I reached out to Catonsville, and they was mentioned earlier, they said they already have something in their classrooms that touched on it, and I said that's fantastic. We can back you up and we can support that. Provide resources that you might be able to use later in your sessions. So I learned certain key words to leave out. Problem,
Yeah. That's awesome. So you're
and
already
just
doing
reach out and put
outreach.
in addition. So I've only reached out to 3. But I didn't have any of this information. I didn't have, like when I went to the high school where I graduated from, and my son, who I lost, graduated from. Shamelessly, maybe, I don't know, but I used that, he held a title in that school for wrestling. So I reached out to the athletic director and tried to work my way in that way. I don't know if that's helpful.
Very smart.
No, that absolutely is something,
Yeah.
I like the idea of you not using words like problem. When I talk about the death rate in their community, I say this is definitely an issue in your county,
Things
and,
like that.
and it's also an issue in your school, and your students will be faced with these decisions. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, and I didn't know if you had something like that, because I see a lot of the templates, which is great because it keeps it consistent throughout the entire program that they're looking through when they look at your other presentations.
So it's I use templates a lot, but I freeform a lot depending on the situation. It's not unusual for me just to type out a brand new email that's specific to that school.
Yeah.
When somebody says, like you said, when somebody says that they're already addressing this in their school, I always will talk to them about, well, good, because we can add to that, because I think we're going to be bringing things to the table that you're probably not addressing. And oh, by the way, if you click on presentation detail and go to our landing page, now you'll see everything. You can watch a presentation. You can see what we do, and you can see how we can add to what you're doing in the classroom.
Right.
So I like the idea of joining them, but if they really dig their heels in, I will go right to, are your students crying in the classroom? Are they hugging you at the end? Because that's a reality, and then you show the letters, and that reinforces that.
Yeah, thank you for that, because that adds the extra personal touch when you're like, people are responding, immediately to, after
I think it's important that they understand. So when I describe the presentation, I'll say that it's a 45-minute presentation. We do it at no charge. And I'll say the presentation consists of a DEA-approved slide deck, an award-winning documentary called Dead on Arrival. But what really resonates with the students, what really makes the impact, is our own personal stories of loss that we share on stage with the students. That emotional approach is what really locks these kids in. And I'll tell you, I start each presentation by saying, my name is Michael Gillette, and on January 27th, 2022, I lost my son to fentanyl poisoning. And boom, the eyes go wide, the phones go down, the kids are paying attention. And then after they sit through Dead on Arrival, you've got them, and then we do the stories. It really is, that is the glue to these presentations, in my mind, at least.
The only other question, and this could be for a later date, is would it be, or do you allow, like, the things I think of, because like adding a short, quick video of like my son wrestling when he wrestled for that school. And so in my head, I'm like, okay, I can put that up and say, here's my son. He wrestled for, Lansdowne High School. He held this title. And then, go into how we lost him.
No, that's very smart. Bob Kiesling does that. He shows pictures of his kids wrestling. You have basically 5 minutes to talk about your child, which is as Mike says, it's the axis of the whole day. That testimony is what differentiates everything. And if you have videos, we can make them. We put them into an MP4 format, and then we would love to get you just a USB stick. This is a USB stick with the whole presentation, but it'll also have your son's test video on it when it comes to your slides. So it'll be a click through and say, here he is. But you've got 5 minutes, and that's your time to tell your story. Jack suggests a format for that.
The place for that, that's really not part of the recruiting process. That's when you're on stage making a presentation, that's when that comes into play.
Yeah, I thought I was getting a little ahead of it from just now. But yeah, I just, just the way we think, right? So sometimes, when you're going through all of this trauma, and you seem to be manic, right? Or at least I was, and I'm like, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And, this is why I was so glad to be here today, so I can kind of really hone in on focus.
No, it's good to have the self-awareness. You know what I mean? Anybody says they're manic really isn't, because you're just kind of aware and you're grounding yourself. So that's great. I'm going to stop the video now. And this is the training portion of how to reach out to schools. I would just add one last thing as a unsolicited advice, that obviously this is tough work. And I always often joke, you go to the doctor, how do I lose weight? Oh, exercise and eat less. Oh, I didn't want to hear that. Today you heard some things, exercise and eat less, in terms of the consistency, the organization. But I can tell you this, when you get pushback to not open the school, they are 100% every time always wrong. Now, you can't say that in that kind of attitude, but they're never right to keep kids ignorant of fentanyl and this poisoning. They're never right. It's always best to err on the side of caution and let them know, because we know there's about an average of 4 kids per high school, now maybe 3 every year, dying of fentanyl poisoning. So we got to get the message to them. All right,
Michael. Well, Michael, I think, had a question, and then Amber also had a question. So, Michael.
Yeah, guys, I just wanted to introduce myself. This is my first meeting with y'all. My name is Mike DiTomaso. I'm based out of Staten Island, New York. I live in Jersey now, but this is my first Fentanyl Fathers meeting, so just wanted to say hello and thank you for helping me join. So I had a couple questions. One, do you guys have anybody that's based out of the Metro New York and/or New Jersey area? If so, I would love to connect with them. Also, prior, I did give a speech without knowing what Fentanyl Fathers was at my local high school in front of about 400 kids. And I also spoke at the parents' kind of PTA meeting to speak to the parents first and then tell them what I'm going to be speaking to their kids about. We got local politicians on board. We had a district attorney there speaking on behalf of not just Monsignor Farrell High School, which is my high school, my brother's high school. It was just kind of a collaboration of multiple people speaking. Even a person that was a former addict came to speak too. I would love to get Monsignor Farrell back involved, specifically with Fentanyl Fathers. Asked them for a letter of recommendation, and I'm actually going to be meeting with them this Tuesday. We also started a scholarship in my brother's name that we donate back to Farrell. So that's something we're going to be getting involved. I'm sorry, who's the last person that was speaking? Who's
Jackie?
Yes, Jackie's son. My brother was the captain of his hockey team and won won a state championship with my high school. So that's kind of what I lean to in as well, and show pictures of him holding a trophy over his head. I bring his medals in and pass it around, and that really hits hard to those kids.
When did your brother pass, Mike?
My brother passed October 14th of 2023.
Wow. I'm really sorry for your loss. I just want to tell you, we're having our first New York assembly on Feb 4. So I want to get you at that and invite you to that. We do have 2 people in New York, Drew Siegel and Ludmila, and they're going to speak at this thing. And I'm thrilled to meet you. And we've got a lot of open doors going on right now in New York City. And so it's fantastic, and you're taking the right approach with these multiple speakers. We just follow a system. We make sure, like we tell them about naloxone and we measure it and all that. But I'm sure you covered everything that was necessary to those 400 kids. Congratulations on pulling it off, and we're thrilled to meet you. Thank you for speaking
Mike,
up.
I've followed your story a lot. I'm so glad that you were able to hop on. I'm a bereaved sibling as well, so it's a little bit of a different loss and testimony. I think too, to highlight during the presentation, Amber is also a bereaved sibling. It's just so really glad that you were able to hop on the training, and that upcoming New York assembly we would love to have you at. It's in Brooklyn, and and we've got a lot more things kind of lined up for the Brooklyn district. So that's awesome.
And Amber has a question. And Mike, I want to send you something that just was released this week. It's our family story, and it was really about a sibling loss, and Jack was in it. So I'd love to send that to you. What's your email?
It's Michael, Michael,
Yep.
DiTomasso, DITOMASSO. Same spelling as my last name on the
Okay.
screen. 0622@gmail.com.
Perfect.
Amber?
For Michael, I have some connections for a bit, so then if you need for me,
Your voice is kind of going in and out, Amber. You have connections though for Michael is kind of what I.
that's what I was gonna say. I used to live in New York for a bit, so if you let me, feel free to reach out, and I'm sorry for your loss. I'm here for the same thing, so that's all I wanted to say.
Yep. Awesome.
Amber was a rock star at her very first sibling testimony. It was we opened up Detroit for the first time, and the news was there. We had media there. We often do that. We'll give a media training later because it's a good idea to get them there. Fantastic.
Laura, you had a question?
Hey, sorry, I was really late seeing the text message about this meeting, so I apologize for coming on so late here. If I was in the middle of working on something else, and in fact now my grandson's getting ready to come down here and interrupt me. But I thought I saw where you said there would be a recording of this.
Yeah, I recorded it, Laura. I'm going to end it right now, but you're going to be on it. I'm going to end it right now, and I will upload it and make it available to you, and I'll get you the link.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I want to chat more about this. I gave up. I accepted 4 years ago that it's nearly impossible to raise awareness in a community that does not want to be aware. And my community is horrible about stigma and not my child. In fact, this morning I was writing a little essay about not my child, and they won't listen. They don't. They say it's just druggies in big cities that it's happening to. I'm a good parent, therefore it won't happen to my child. And I just get so much resistance. I asked 3 years ago if I could show the Don't Die for One Eye video at my school, because I really felt like that was something kids would watch. And they said, oh, well, before we could schedule an assembly, we'd have to have every parent of every student sign a consent form.
We'd love to send Mike Gillette in there and make him an offer they can't refuse.
Let me tell you two things.
Okay.
Before I book, or once I book a presentation, or before, I will talk with the principal about opt-out letters. I actually provide them with a sample opt-out letter because in most schools they're going to want to send that out. So here's the letter you can send out, and I will tell you, we get very few parents, who want to opt out their students. What was the other thing that they say?
What's happened here, and there's a reason. The schools are terrified of the parents now because a couple of years ago they had an anti-bullying assembly, and they crossed a line into DEI issues and talked to kids about things that parents did not want their kids talked to about. Mm-hmm. And so it really upsets some of the parents, and now the schools are terrified of them.
So we approach that two different ways. The first way is Jack can share with you, and not right this minute, but we have slides that talk about how we do not use fear tactics. We use storytelling, our stories about our children and how we lost them. That's the glue. We don't use scare tactics at all. But the bottom line is, here's the landing page. Look at the slide deck. View the presentation. If you see anything objectionable in that presentation, bring it to our attention and we'll change it. But I'll tell the principal, I don't want to step on stage until you view the presentation. So if somebody's concerned about scare tactics, they're concerned about these things, have them view the presentation, and that's what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Well, I'm currently working with state legislators trying to make it mandatory throughout the state. That I'm just going to go over the school's head and let's just make it mandatory statewide, and that way the schools don't have to worry about being afraid of the parents. And obviously, they'll still have an opt-out option, but because the school just doesn't want to do anything because they're afraid of the parents.
Yeah, we've run into that too, but word of mouth has been like a powerful thing. I'm gonna go into kind of the presentation that we do, just so I'll give
Jack. I'm going to sign off.
Mike, have a great time.
Mike, have a great trip in New Zealand. Jump out of a plane for
Have a
Drew.
great trip.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody. Take care now.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike.